So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Brexit deadlock in Northern Ireland risks, rekindling violence, experts warn. So in Dublin, the diplomatic deadlock over Northern Ireland's post-Brexit trade protocols undermining local efforts to suppress paramilitary outlaws and fanning fears of potential spike in violence, according to a commission of international experts. So we've seen more and more stories come out about unionists threatening attacks and also more weapons seizures. But it's hard to know if that's linked to the unionist hatred of the protocol or down to the police doing a great job in general. And we'll kind of discuss it further in the article. They do give some statistics. But some of the ideas they do push in some of the reports are quite good as well, or at least worth discussing. But this could be very much down to the police doing a better job. But we have heard more unionist rhetoric about the protocol, and it was getting toxic for a while. There were some riots last March, but we haven't seen anything really since then, I think. Their report, published jointly by British and Irish parliaments on Wednesday, documents sharing the shifting patterns of paramilitary activities across Northern Ireland, where rival Irish, Republican and British, these are quite loyalist but unionist gangs, remain entrenched in working class communities despite a 1998 peace agreement. So they're talking about the Good Friday Agreement. I've heard stories of gangs threatening and exploiting people for money, but I've not read it in any major publications. But they have put out stories about stuff regarding unionists. They haven't put out a lot of stuff regarding unionists and Republican gangs. However, we have seen the protocol result in some drug busts, which is damaging gang money. Unionist gangs were involved in the riots last March around the protocol. There would be two real reasons why they would be mad at the protocol, one being their weird obsession with the union, and the other being their drug routes being disrupted. Overall, the Independent Reporting Commission found that parliamentary activity, including bombing, shooting, beatings, and acts of intimidation, fell in most categories during the last recent 12 months under review. For example, they identified only 5 bombings. I mean, when you use the phrase only 5, it's a bit weird. I guess in the context of Northern Ireland, something else. And 20 paramilitary-linked shootings from April 2021 to March 2022. Less than half the levels recorded in the previous 12 months. A total of 142 households were intimidated from their homes, down from 236, so not great, but improving. They credited in part increased arrests and firearm seizures by 2 specialist law enforcement units, the police's terrorism investigation unit and the interagency paramilitary crime task force. So it's hard to know if violence has gone down in Northern Ireland in general regarding the paramilitaries, or is it the case that the police are just really getting good at snuffing them out? But the panel cited the collapse of the Northern Ireland cross-community government at Stormont as creating a dangerous leadership vacuum that has happened so often in the past could be filled by street militants. An issue here is that Tory MPs have told the DUP that the protocol will be scrapped by a certain date. That gets fed back into unionist communities. That date passes, nothing happens, and it makes the DUP look stupid. And if people start believing that there is no democratic way to get rid of the protocol, they will probably use other means to get rid of it. Westminster can't get rid of the protocol because we will lose the trade and cooperation agreement and risk a trade war with the EU and the US. Also, international condemnation for putting the Good Friday Agreement at risk. The issue is that some unionists don't understand that. One person put it, quote, unionists claim that there are different rules for Northern Ireland and Britain, and that's an affront to their British identity. Although when they want to force their extreme religious belief on everyone in Northern Ireland, e.g. regarding women's rights, and make them different to Britain, they don't have an issue. So some of them want to eat their cake and have it too. Classic British mentality. That quote from a viewer of the show. At least up to they don't have an issue, but the cake bit is me. This new instability at the political level, the Commissioners wrote, has fed speculation about the potential for a resurgence of paramilitary activity. The failure of cross-community government produces an inhibiting factor in terms of efforts to end paramilitarism within Northern Ireland, they said. This is something the DUP and the Tories can try and diffuse by keeping our standards with the EU aligned, meaning that unions can't claim the rules are super different between Northern Ireland and Great Britain, discussing the situation with the EU to at least understand how EU rule changes will impact Northern Ireland. This will help the UK understand the changes and see what we can do to minimise the impact of GB and Northern Ireland trade disruption. Northern Ireland is an actual special case where the EU will make arrangements given the history of Northern Ireland, but this requires Great Britain to stop messing around with the protocol and, in the words of Peter Capaldi, sit down and talk. While loyalists hardliners have mounted a few high-profile actions linked to anti-protocol sentiments, including a bomb threat targeting Irish Minister Simon Coveney. That was terrifying. during a Belfast speech. They have yet to repeat the kinds of righteous mayhem experienced following the 2021 rollout of EU checks at the Northern Ireland's ports, which was also terrifying. So the Coveney situation was pretty scary, but I am surprised the rioting has not happened. But last year we did see threats to the staff at the border posts. Perhaps they're biding their time, or maybe the police have managed to clamp down on them, but the national security systems need to really understand that some of these unionists can be incredibly dangerous, and it won't take much to spark the match. The Commissioner said Stormont need to come back together to pursue the 1998 peace deal's core vision of a Northern Ireland free of paramilitarism and based entirely on the principle of peace and democracy. The issue is that the DUP want is impossible, so I don't know what will get them back to the table. The nature of Stormont means that the largest parties from both sides are needed for Stormont to work. That means the DUP and Sinn Féin. I don't know how in reality to get the DUP back into Stormont. To achieve this, they recommend that the next Northern Ireland executive, presuming the DUP ever drops its veto, should agree with London and Dublin on a new formal process of engagement with leaders of today's paramilitary camps, the Ulster Defence Association and the Ulster Volunteer Force, and the Lloyd on the Union side, and the Irish Republican Army splinter groups on the other. This approach could include the appointment of an independent person who would be authorised to speak to the various interested parties, including the paramilitary groups themselves, they recommend. This is fairly interesting, in my opinion, being able to hear the actual views of the paramilitary groups to see if a compromise can be reached. However, I don't know how much in reality it would help, but the situation is that until the DUP go back into Stormont, nothing much changes here. Another election and we'll see similar results, so we're in kind of an infinite cycle until the DUP drops his veto, and I don't know how you make them do that. I really don't. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you want, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.